So according to Poison Control Health's online website, nearly half of all of their calls are attributed to children under 6 years that are poisoned. This has been the same problem even from the mid-20th century, and that's when the poison control centers were originally started. They were started to help treat and categorize different poisons inside of foods and products. The first center came in 1953. They had, along with them, they came with new regulations and safety guidelines. And now there's 55 poison control centers that serve the entire United States. So my first point, I'd like to cover the establishment of poison control centers. So they started in 1953, was the first poison control center. But before that, in the 1930s, J. Area was the first man to truly recognize that poison was a problem between children. He worked at Duke University, and he was a pediatrician. And he basically collected data on all of these children and realized that he needed to help them. And he was providing assistance to pediatrics wards and stuff like that, but nothing was ever done in the 1930s. So during World War II, another guy named Louis Goldman was a pharmacist, and he created index cards of over 9,000 different house products that had different poisons in them. And when people would call, he was the one that would be there to answer it. He basically created the precursor to poison control all by himself. And then in 1953, Edward Press and Louis Goldman formed the first poison control in Chicago itself. And there were 10 more to be produced just in Chicago in that first year. And by 1978, there were 649 sites. But that was the maximum it's ever been, is in 1978. And then originally the poison control centers only took calls from pediatrics wards instead of taking them from the general populace. So they had to deal with, if anyone was poisoned, it would always be coming from physicians. Only until the 1960s, when the United States population was able to make calls towards poison control. Before that, they were not able to at all. And then the people that were answering them had limited to almost no training, or it was non-standardized in the sites that they were at. It was usually clerics or pharmacists or pediatrics that were all in training. So it was spotty service at best, usually. Along with the establishment of these poison control centers came the regulations and rules. So some of those were the child-resistant packaging, which came in 1970 from the Child-Resistant Packaging Act. There was also the removal of dangerous chemicals in the household, such as like arsenic and rat poison and stuff like that, which was causing a significant problem for a lot of children. There's also the biggest one that they still do is the poison prevention education, which is then basically teaching children and parents what poison is and how to prevent it happening from them and mostly their children. They also do product labeling, and they reduce the size of pill bottles and stuff like that to help reduce poisoning accidents. And for the modern poison controls, they're far different from how they were originally. Now they all need to be certified employees. Usually they require doctorates, or at least 2 years of training. They're actually standardized by the American Association of Poison Control Centers, which is AAPCC. And before it was considered too expensive, which is why they were not done originally. So there just wasn't the money for it. But now there's only 55 centers which service the entire United States. And actually with the reduction of that into 55 centers, they have been able to cover more of the US completely because they had more money to certify everyone in the first place. So that's what allowed them to actually have the best coverage. So now that I've given a brief overview, I'd just like to review. After the establishment in 1953 came new regulations, and along with that, the poison control centers, they were originally established just to help children, basically, that were having a large problem with being poisoned in just their houses. And today, poison control helps millions of people each year, and they take phone calls roughly every 15 seconds.